Stuart Holman here with you again. Welcome back to the third in this series of devotionals in the Psalms, particularly Psalms set in the worshipping life of the people of God. Sung for centuries in a liturgical setting, in a lectionary cycle of seasons and prescribed readings, the Psalms gave voice to the prayers of the people of Israel and formed their hopes and their expectations for their Messiah. We're still at the Salisbury Cathedral, which dates back to 1220, when the construction of this building began. And this setting just seems to make most appropriate this series, where today we turn to Psalm 61. The superscription begins, "For the director of music with stringed instruments of David." There's nothing more specific here than a generic temple setting, but the psalm begins with an urgent prayer. "Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." David's prayer for help before it was recast for use in the temple comes from the ends of the earth, far from Jerusalem, far from the temple where God's presence was known. I think so often our prayers come far from the safe places where God is recognised and revered. When God seems far away, this call for help arises. This psalm would have been learned and sung regularly in the temple, but it would find its poignancy in the ends of the earth when we seem far away from God. Certainly in the life of any Christian person, our most desperate prayers for help come from these kind of places. It's when our hearts are growing faint and when our faith is challenged and doubts are rising. That's when we call to God. God, hear us, protect us, comfort us. Lead me to the rock that is higher than the person praying or singing the psalm. That's an acknowledgement that we are not able to save ourselves. Our resources, our protection, our intellect, even our faith is insufficient. We need a rock, an elevated place of security that is higher than anything we can do for ourselves. It's not about the strength of our faith, but about the strength of the rock in which our faith is placed. This metaphorical rock can only be God himself. He alone has sufficient strength to save. And so with this prayer, there is actually an assurance. God has delivered his people in the past, and so surely he will do so again. Verse 3, "For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. For you, God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name." So God has protected Israel in the past through all kinds of situations, which gives the singers of this psalm assurance for their future. The defensive tower, providing elevation above the approaching enemy, was a position of strength. From there, the archers could shoot further. Rocks or boiling oil could be rained down upon any attackers who came too close. The high tower was a strong defence, a protective structure. Like a tower, this prayer for protection is buttressed by God's great faithfulness to his own covenant promises made to his people. Now, in what initially feels like a change of tack, this prayer, this psalm, now pivots to be a prayer for the king. Verse 6, "Increase the days of the king's life, his years for many generations. May he be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then I will ever sing in praise of your name and fulfill my vows day after day." So the psalm turns to be a prayer for the king and for his dynasty. May his life go on and on for generations. May this king be enthroned before God forever. Pretty grand request. It's a big ask. And it's on such a scale, with such a vast horizon, then it cannot possibly be fulfilled in the experience of a merely human king like all of the kings of Israel from David onwards. And then we recognise that this prayer is actually a prayer for God's messianic king, King David's greater son, the one promised back in 2 Samuel 7. When we make that identification, we see how these final 3 verses actually relate to the prayer for protection with which the psalm began. Verse 6 isn't a sudden departure or a change of topic. It turns out that our protection and safety is entirely bound up in the rule of God's chosen Messiah King. That's where true security is found. He is the rock that is higher than anything we could put together. He is the high tower of defence. When we entrust ourselves to him, we find that we have a secure home, dwelling in God's tabernacle, tent, as it says in verse 4, dwelling with God forever. Now today, as you sit listening to this part of God's word, I wonder if you find yourself a little out of your depth. Is there a situation in your life where you need to turn away from your own defences, your own strategies and protective behaviours, and instead put your trust in Jesus Christ in relation to your specific situation? Now, this is not a call to live recklessly. No, be wise in all that you do, but recognise that your protection and your security, it all ultimately comes from God through whatever means he provides, human or otherwise. And if there's no singular situation making you anxious or concerned today, can I challenge us all with the thought that God's protective care is not limited to the changing situations and circumstances of our lives that come and go. No, each one of us desperately needs a rock that is higher than I, upon whom we can stand forever. Our lives in every part are fragile and temporary without the saving work of God's Messiah King. Jesus Christ alone will save us from our own failings, our own weaknesses, such that we are given the heritage, the inheritance of those who belong to God, as it says in verse 5. And so with the psalmist, we can also sing his praise. May the Messiah, Jesus Christ, be enthroned in God's presence forever. Appoint your love and faithfulness to protect him. Then I will ever sing in praise of your name and fulfill my vows day after day.